Good afternoon, everybody. It's Tracy Di Bartolo, Thermomix consultant here from beautiful McLaren Vale. I hope everyone's having a good day, and I thought I would come on and show you one of my all-time favourite desserts. So I have a little bit of a backstory for you before we get started. Galaktoboureko is one of those amazing desserts that I always had it in my head that it was way too difficult to make and that I should just leave it to the experts and not even attempt it. And then a program came on TV and it was one of those traveling chef kind of guys, I think maybe Rick Steins or someone, I'm not sure. And he was making Galaktoboureko. So I got a piece of paper and a pen and I started writing down his recipe. And it became very clear very quickly that the real main component of Galaktoboureko is the custard. So there are three main elements. The first is the phyllo pastry. Now, I do not make my own phyllo pastry. That would just be way too beyond my capabilities. So I buy this brand, if you can see that. I get it from Coles here. I'm not sure what other supermarkets. This is the one I've had the most success with. Okay, so it's just in the sort of like the dairy section or where other pastas, the ready-made pastas are. So your tortellinis and raviolis and things. That's where you'll find it, and it's really not that expensive. So that is the first element. The second element is the custard that goes in the middle, the filling, which predominantly is semolina. So I think that's what sets it apart from other custards. And the third element is the syrup that you pour on top. So basically, I'm just going to be making two of those elements, and we are going to be eating it tonight. So if there's anybody on there watching who is going to be joining me at dinner tonight, guess what? You get to have some of this. Give me a thumbs up if that sounds great. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get started with the actual custard. This is not a Thermomix recipe that I'm using. It's actually one that I tweaked together myself from that day watching a TV program. And I have written it and put it onto my cookie dough. So it does appear on my screen and I can follow all the steps, but that's because I've put it there. So that's a pretty amazing thing about the Thermomix. So I'm going to go into my week because I found the recipe in my created recipes and I told my TM6 that I wanted to cook it today. So there it is, Galaktoboureko, which I hope I'm saying right because I am not Greek, but if there are any Greek people out there now or later, if you're watching it on replay, please tell me if I'm saying it right or wrong, but I do my best. All right, start cooking. The first part of this recipe, when I wrote it in, was to make the syrup that goes at the end. But I'm going to skip through all of that right now because I don't want to do the syrup first. I'm going to skip past all of that. And now I'm just going to start on the custard. So the ingredients for the custard is 3 eggs. Go, and next is 150 of sugar, 250 of the fine semolina, and 30 grams of corn flour. And I usually, 30 grams is pretty good, but I'm generous with that 30 grams. So I've just put those all in here together and I'm going to pop it in like so. And the next thing that it's going to ask me for is 1.5 litres of milk. So in this goes. There's my scales. So even when you write your own recipes, you still get access to the scales, which I think is pretty excellent. All right, so there is just over 1 litre and just up to, and again, when you're writing your own recipes, it really is important, really is important that you maintain the rule about not going above the maximum. So you can see that that's quite close to the maximum, but it's still below it. Okay, and then a tablespoon of lemon juice. So that all goes in like so, lid on. And the next step is to cook it for 13 minutes, 90 degrees on speed 4. So I'm just going to pop that in my machine behind me. And that's going to be cooking while I do my next step, which is getting my phyllo pastry ready. So I will just move this a little bit out of the way so that we can see what we're doing. All right, so the trick with phyllo is to try not to let it dry out too much. So that's the one thing that is tricky. And the second thing is that don't try and take it out of the packet straight away and try and flatten it out, because if you do that, it's going to break. So it's reasonably fragile. This is the thing about phyllo, which I think is why a lot of people don't work with it. To layer in between the phyllo, I'm going to use a combination of 100 grams of melted butter and 100 grams just of rice bran oil. Now, if you don't have rice bran oil, that's fine. You don't have to use it. I just like it to break up the butter. And also have ready a nice big dish, like a big lasagna dish, really. Hello there, Matthew Rowe. I am cooking Galaktoboureko, as it says, I'm hoping, on the header. So it's a lovely Greek dessert, which I fell in love with and used to spend a hideous amount of money, like $10 for a small little plastic container from a lovely lady at the markets who's not there anymore. So then I worked out how to make it myself. And it really is quite a simple recipe. The only thing is that you've just got to be prepared to do your phyllo like so. So it's pretty, you know, you can be as slapdash as you want, really. So I put a little bit of melted butter and oil in the bottom of my pan, and then I am just going to put that in, stick it up above the top and keep going. So it's actually really, really easy. Not very interesting for you all to watch, I suppose, but you can see how I'm not being very careful. And it really isn't going to make any difference at the end of it. And in goes the next lot. I tend to do about 6 or 7 phyllo in the bottom. And then once my beautiful custard is made, then we're just going to pour the custard straight in on top of the phyllo. And next we're going to do some more layers, exactly the same way I'm doing them now. And we're just going to layer them all on the top. Now I have a beautiful Greek friend called Kathy, so maybe Kathy, you might be watching this one day and you can tell me that my, I don't know, I'm not very careful, I suppose. I'm sure she's much more careful than I am. And I know that her and her mum are exceptionally good cooks. And I think that I've actually made this for them, and it even got the tick of approval from them. Okay, who's counting how much phyllo I'm putting in? I reckon that's about the 5th one. So one more can go in. Be prepared to get nice buttery hands, especially when you're messy like me. Okay. Simple, yeah? Okay. That's probably about enough. I'm just going to wipe my hands and I'll pick it up and show you what it looks like. And I'm just also going to cover up my pastry there so that it doesn't get too dry. It's a coolish day here, so it's not too bad, but if you're trying to do this in the middle of summer, then it's going to get quite dry around the edges. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. My very hastily put together bottom layers of my phyllo. And all that we really need to do now is, in about 8 minutes, and I don't expect you to stay around for 8 minutes if you don't want to, is we're going to pour that semolina custard straight into here, put it aside, then I'm going to repeat with the phyllo on top, the same, about 6 or 7 on top, it doesn't matter, there's no rules. The important thing is that you want it to look really nice at the end. So all of these bits around the edges, once that's filled up with the custard and you've put more phyllo on top, then what I tend to do is I fold back that phyllo around the edges so that you've got a nice smooth edge. And then just before you put it in the oven, score it. So get a really, really sharp knife and score the top of the pastry. You can do it in diamond pattern, you can do it in square pattern, it really doesn't matter. And each of those will become your little serving size. So I usually just do it, you know, I have 3 pieces across here, and then I might have about maybe 6. So you get about 18 pieces out of this one big lasagna tray. So score the top of the pastry so that it's broken and made little squares, and then just get some water and flick the water all over the top of the phyllo pastry. When you put it in the oven, I'll just have a look at my recipe to see how long I do. So it's just 180-degree oven, so just a normal oven, and you do it for about 45 to 55 minutes. So it actually does cook for quite a long time, and that's predominantly to get that phyllo pastry beautiful and crispy. All right, so what I can do while I'm waiting is I'm going to go back to my recipe and I'm going to make the beautiful syrup that goes on top. All right, I'm just going to go backwards. So to make the syrup, you have 200 grams of raw sugar, or you can use white sugar. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to tap on that and you can see how it brings up the scales. Tell me out there, the people who are watching, have you tried doing your own recipe and putting it into your created recipes? I think it's just one of the best features that we have. And a couple of weeks ago, I went around to some customers and we got 2 or 3 of us together and we actually did like a little masterclass just on how to find recipes either off of Cookie Doo or off of the Recipe Community, pull them into Cookie Doo and then make your own tweaks and resave them as your own recipe. It's not too difficult, it's just a matter of seeing how the process works. And then once you've got that under your belt, then you can just go ahead and actually type in your own recipes, which is what I've done with this one. All right, so 200 grams of raw sugar, in we go. And we are going to mill that for 10 seconds on speed 7. 10 seconds and around to speed 7. Okay. I'm sure you've all seen what beautifully milled sugar looks like, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. There you go. Okay, I just realised you can't see my machine, but you can just, you know, work it out. You know where the buttons are. Okay, next we are going to add 300 grams of boiled water. So I just boil it in the kettle first. Right, and next we are going to add 2 tablespoons of honey. I'm really not the person who gets the tablespoon out and measures it. I kind of just, that's a tablespoon, and that's a tablespoon. However, whatever you feel comfortable with. And the next ingredient is a lemon that's been juiced, and also the rind of the lemon. So that's just in that little thing there. I'm going to pop that in. So very simple ingredients: milled sugar, water, honey, lemon juice. And we're going to cook that for 15 minutes at 100 degrees on speed 4. Oh, no, on speed slow spoon. My apologies. Okay, I will set that up. And I'm just going to go and check this. I'll be right back. I could hear by the sound of the blades that the semolina was already nice and thick. So if I just get my spoon, see how thick that is? All right. Now the only other thing that I do with this is I get some butter and I pop it in on the top, just stir it through, and it will just melt. You can put it back on the machine if you want and cook it for another minute or so, but honestly, it's just going to melt as I'm stirring it. Beautiful. All right, now you get to see me pour this in. I'm going to bring this forward, so hopefully you can see that, yeah? And we are literally just going to pour the semolina custard into this dish. So it really is as simple as that. And to think I paid, you know, $10 a slice for years and years and years, because I thought it was such a specialty dish. But don't tell anybody that I'm taking it to, because, like, you know, they're special, and I've slaved for hours over a hot stove, haven't I, everybody, doing this? You all know me better than that. No stoves for me. Okay, so it makes the perfect amount for this big lasagna dish. I'm not really good with what size it is, but hopefully you can tell by looking at it. Just one of those nice big ones. Get out the way. All right, so done. Oh, yummy. Next. There we go. Can you see? Hopefully. A bit white on white, I know, but there you are. Next thing, back to our pastry. And we're going to repeat the process. 5 or 6 pieces. Get them nice and buttery. And we're going to pop it on the top. Lovely. Okay, so butter side up, okay, which is how we did the other ones as well. So I just pop it on there like so. There we go. Next. So that the one that's touching the semolina hasn't got any butter on it on the underside. You don't need it at all. Phyllo pastry is one of the most beautiful things in life, I think. Okay, pop that on there. See I'm a little bit slack, aren't I? That's okay. Right, a couple more pieces. So with the, I read somebody gave me a few hints about making Galaktoboureko, and they said that it doesn't matter whether your cooked dish, so that's the one with the pastry and the semolina custard, Doesn't matter if that's the one that's hot and your syrup is cold, or vice versa. You could cook this early, have it sitting around to get very cool, but then you would pour the hot hot syrup over the top. Now I have absolutely no idea whether that is true or false, but I have done it both ways, just depending on how my life is at the time, and I found they both work perfectly. I probably actually prefer it if this dish is gone slightly cold and then I pour the hot custard, the hot syrup over it. Got custard on the brain. I think I prefer that in terms of it's easy to eat that way because it's not so hot that it's burning your mouth. All right, just enough of that. Okay, on we go. So now what I want to do is I just want to tidy it up a little bit. So I pretty much just fold over the edges, and I've left a little tiny bit of the butter so that I can put that on the top. Okay, once this is all cooked, you see, it's all going to be all nice and puffy, so it doesn't really matter. So around the edges of where I folded in that pastry, because the pastry started to go dry already, so make sure that it's nice and moist, like so. There we go. All right, now to find a nice sharp knife, which is here. Somebody would probably call that a filleting knife, maybe, but I don't fillet fish. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it twice lengthways, like so. Just really need to break the pastry, that's all. So do that. And having a pointy end, oops, wonky, I should watch what I'm doing. All right, and then starting in the middle, like so. Make the pieces smaller because then it goes further. And people can always come back for seconds, which they inevitably do. So that's 3, 6, 9. So I'm going to get about 18 pieces out of this. Hopefully that's enough for tonight, yeah? Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to do after I wipe my hands is a little bit of water in here. Okay, just a little bit of water, and I'm just going to flick that on top. You can see, I'll show you in a minute, the butter is all oozing up, but yeah, just, you could spray it if you've got spray, but either way it's fine. And show you what it looks like. So there you go. That is your pre-cooking. So now I'm going to put the oven on. Hello, Franca there. You get to eat this tonight. Aren't you lucky? I'm going to put the oven on 180 and I'm going to cook it for about 45, 50 minutes. So that will be just perfect timing. It'll still be warm. And then in a few minutes, this will be ready. I'll take this with me tonight and pour it all over for everybody to enjoy. So that's it, Galaktoboureko. Hopefully you were taking notes as I was telling you all about it. If not, then you can always just send me a message. Send me a message and I can quickly bang out the recipe. It's so simple. And if you've got semolina in your cupboard, so the fine semolina, I can guarantee you have got every other ingredient, and just buy, you probably will just have to buy this, the phyllo, that's it, if it's not something that you have in the cupboard. But eggs and milk and butter, some flour, the semolina, some sugar, honestly, it's dead easy recipe. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that and got some benefit out of it, and come back and see me another day.